Let's talk about a single voyage in 1498 that didn't just change the map, it completely redrew the lines of global power. Today, we're going to unpack the incredible story of how Vasco da Gama's journey to India by sea kicked off a whole new age of empire and trade.
Okay, so this is the big question, right? If there were already shorter ways to get from Europe to India, why on earth would they try to find this insanely long route all the way around Africa? The answer tells you everything you need to know about the crazy economic and political pressures of the 15th century. This wasn't a search for a better route, it was a desperate hunt for the only route they had left.
So we're talking about Europe's spice dilemma. And you'd think a story about global exploration would start with kings and grand ships, but no. This story starts somewhere way more basic. It starts on a farm. And it all boils down to one simple, urgent problem. Europe was starving for spice.
Okay, so let's break this down, because it's like a chain reaction. First, farming gets way better. You've got new plows, new tricks like crop rotation. What does that mean? Well, more food for animals. More animal food means more animals, which means, you guessed it, a ton more meat on the table. But here's the kicker, and this is the crucial part. Without refrigerators, how do you keep all that meat from going bad? Spices. Spices were the preservative, the flavor enhancer. They were everything. So demand just, boom, it went through the roof. For a long, long time, this wasn't a problem. Spices and goods flowed pretty easily through these old trade routes you see here, overland, across the sea. But then, in 1453, bam, a geopolitical earthquake. The Ottoman Empire captures Constantinople. And just like that, the Ottomans, who were enemies of Christian Europe, controlled everything. The door to the east, it wasn't just closed, it was slammed shut and locked.
So Europe was totally cut off. Finding a new sea route wasn't just a fun idea for adventurers, it was an absolute economic necessity. I mean, think about the challenge they were facing. The main trade highways were gone. The only option left was this insane, terrifying idea: sail all the way around to Africa, a continent whose southern tip they didn't even know existed. It was literally off the map.
All right, Section 2, a race around the world, because that's exactly what this became. This desperation kicked off an incredible, high-stakes competition between the biggest naval powers of the time.
And two main rivals quickly emerged from the pack: Portugal and Spain. Now, both had some cool new tech on their side, things like the compass and the astrolabe, which made navigation way more precise. But, and this is key, they had two completely different strategies for winning this race.
So let's dive into Portugal's long game. For them, this wasn't just about one single trip. Oh no, this was a national obsession that spanned generations. It was this slow, methodical, step-by-step push down the coast of Africa into total unknowns.
And yeah, this whole thing was really the work of three key rulers. It took three of them, one after another, pushing this national project forward, refusing to let the dream die.
You have to start with this guy, Prince Henry the Navigator. He was the mastermind. The man was obsessed. So obsessed, he even set up a whole institution dedicated to it. Then you had King John II, the strategist, who pushed for the big breakthrough. And finally, King Manuel I, who was in charge when they finally crossed the finish line. But it really kicks off with Henry securing a papal bull back in 1453. That's basically getting the Pope's permission, giving Portugal the exclusive right to find and own the route to India.
But man, was it slow going. Look at this timeline. It took them decades just to cross the equator for the first time. Decades. And the huge breakthrough, the moment that changed everything, it didn't come from some brilliant plan. It happened completely by accident, when a guy named Bartholomew Diaz got blown way off course by a massive storm.
I love this part. So Diaz, the sailor, barely survives this storm and names the tip of Africa the Cape of Storms. Pretty fitting, right? But his boss, King John II, hears this and says, no way. He renames it the Cape of Good Hope. And that was pure genius marketing. It was a message to the world and to his own investors saying, we've done it. The way to India is open for business.
Okay, so just as Portugal is this close to winning the race, their rival, Spain, decides to make a wild, game-changing move. A move that would completely change the world map, but not in the way anyone expected.
And this is where Christopher Columbus enters the picture. He's this Italian guy with a pretty radical idea. He's thinking, why are we messing around with Africa? The world is round. If we just sail west, we'll eventually hit India. So he pitches this crazy-sounding shortcut to Spain's king and queen. And since they're desperate to get one up on Portugal, they decide to roll the dice and fund his voyage.
So in 1492, off he goes.
Columbus sails west, and he completely misses India. Instead, he bumps into a massive continent that Europeans had no idea even existed, the Americas, the so-called New World.
So now you've got a huge problem, right? Spain has just discovered this, quote, new world, while Portugal is pioneering the route to the, quote, known world. Who gets what? This accidental discovery kicks off a massive fight between the two superpowers. They were on a collision course.
And the way they settled it is just wild. The Treaty of Tordesillas. They basically got the Pope to draw a line down the globe, an imaginary line in the Atlantic. Everything to the west of that line, Spain's to explore and claim. Everything to the east, that's Portugal's turf. Just like that, they carved up the world between them. And with that settled, Portugal was clear to finish what it started.
Which brings us to the finish line. The rivalry with Spain is sorted, the map is divided. Now Portugal can put all its energy into that final push to India.
So in 1497, King Manuel I gives the job to a guy named Vasco da Gama. His mission? Complete the journey. He follows the path that Diaz had accidentally found, successfully sails around the Cape of Good Hope, and heads out into the completely unknown Indian Ocean.
And this is the moment it all comes together. Da Gama makes it to Mozambique on the east coast of Africa, and there he finds it. A busy harbor full of ships that have already sailed from India. The secret was out. The path was real. So he hires an experienced Indian pilot, a man named Abdul Majid, to guide him across that last stretch of ocean.
And there it is. In 1498, Vasco da Gama and his crew finally arrive in Calicut, in Kerala, India. They'd done it. The first direct sea voyage from Europe to India was complete. After almost 100 years of trying, the massive economic problem that had been plaguing Europe was, at last, solved.
But this story doesn't have a simple, happy ending. You have to ask, was this really a triumph of exploration that connected the world? Or was it the beginning of something much darker, a new age of colonial exploitation in Asia? Because opening this route didn't just bring spices back to Europe. It brought European power, European cannons directly to Asia. And that set the stage for centuries of colonization. So did it connect the world, or did it just create a new division between conquerors and the conquered? It's a really important question to leave you with.
Previous year questions related to this topic.